Welcome, fellow travelers, to the Never Ending Adventure podcast. This is Russell, one of your co-hosts. With me, as always, is Ned.
Yes,
Pruitt.
DJ Netty P.
DJ Netty P. I gotta say,
That's
Ned,
my name.
This episode, I think we just talked a little bit. We mentioned this may not be the most important episode, may not be an episode that's going to forever be one of our favorites, not going to be in our top 5. Here's the thing, dude. I do think there's something I learned that is very, very important in this episode. And I think it's important enough to be brought up at the very beginning of this podcast.
Okay.
That thing, the very important tidbit that I learned in this episode is that Mr. Cupcake, his real name is Todd.
Oh, wait, hold on there.
Cupcake.
Do you not remember in the episode when they were going to make a movie and Finn and Jake are making a movie with BMO that they cast Mr. Cupcake as a character called, I think it's Todd Johnson, or in that movie? And so one of the thoughts is that the Sugar Cube man had seen that movie and only knew of Mr. Cupcake as Todd from that movie.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, that's the only other time that the name Todd's been referenced around
on
the muffin.
On the wiki, his name is Todd Cupcake. And I'm like, how did I never see the name Todd before? Like,
I guess
there's no
so. Maybe,
freaking way that's real.
That's why I was like, I don't know. Unless
it's a Berenstain Bears thing, right? It's like, or Berenstain Bears. Like which was it really? What is that called? I can't remember.
Well, is it his real name? Is it we call him Todd Cupcake because he was in the movie?
All remember
as
it
Todd?
different.
Yeah,
than
we
how
don't
it really
know,
was. Well, it's my tops for the episode.
that's your ultimate tops of this episode.
But
yes.
I mean, that's how reaching I am for things that I love. And no, I mean, this is a great episode. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're gonna have a blast talking about this episode this week. But I just want to say, before we get too deep into this, the Candy Cube not wanting Finn to pick him up because he says, I saw what happened to Todd when he picked him up. And me realizing who the F was Todd. It's
Todd.
The Cupcake. It's the Mr. Cupcake's Todd. Todd's hot, dog. I mean, wasn't he your sexy character for
I think he was our sexy character from the first episode. I don't think we were doing official sexy characters, but
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there was
Todd's not a hot name. I'm sorry, Todd's. I apologize.
Well, if that's your top,
I didn't mean that.
I still think that's funny that this is your tops of the episode because I feel like
come on,
it's a weird. Yes, we are talking about season 5, episode 15. Glitch is a glitch. But I think there's just kind of I don't love this episode. But I do think that when they're blipping into the source code. And it's just kind of like a brain fuck at this point, and like you think your TV is messing up. The fact when they come in and the sound effects is just Jake like doing that on his lips. I like that part. And then when they exit the source code and everything's being put back together, when it zooms out real quick and has the whole like Milky Way universe with the little smiley face, I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, the universe with the smiley face was good, but then there's a moment right after that, that there's a character that like looks back at you, and I didn't even take a note of who it was because I didn't like it very much.
It verged on the creepy, like cinema of the unsettling vibe there. Well,
Ned, what the heck is going on with this episode? A glitch of a glitch. I mean, it's a special one for many reasons.
I very high level, just because there's only about 4 episodes in the show that have different animations. There's another one called Food Chain. There's one called Bad Jubies, and there's one called Water Park Prank. And I think Food Chain or a Water Park Prank might be my least favorite Adventure Time episodes of all time.
Wow. Like, all guest directed, correct?
I don't know about guest directed. This one specifically was written, storyboarded, and directed by one person, David O'Reilly, which I'm guessing David O'Reilly is either an outsider or
I got some information on him actually.
And had some like give me that because I didn't dig deeper into David specifically.
I was curious. I had to know because David O'Reilly was initially going to be my most punchable character, and I apologize, David. because this is me.
Him right in the face.
This is not you. Your art style is your art style, and I think you're really good at what you're doing. It's just not for me, and I'll get into why I'm not into this art style in a minute here. But I do want to talk a little bit about what you're doing. I don't know, like what the motivation for bringing him on was, like how this came to be. But he is, and this is the first time I want to say in 20 years that there was a guest director on a Cartoon Network show, which is really fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, so he was a guest, right? That's cool.
Yes, so he's an Irish artist or visual artist, and I have just a note about him from his Wikipedia page. It's talking about his style. So O'Reilly's work is often characterized by the use of intentionally stripped down 3D graphics. He is known for his popularization of the use of low poly 3D and the use of 3D software as a personal and artistic tool, as outlined in his 2009 essay, Basic Animation Aesthetics. He was an early adapter of the glitching effect and uses elements of the software and used in his works. Cool. David has been the man to lead animation through a conceptual blockage. 3D animation was being dominated by commercial aesthetics. He deconstructed the 3D to the point of absurdity. So basically a leading animator in this, certainly in 3D art styles, but certainly in the like glitchy thing. And you see other things do it too. It's not like this is the first time we've ever seen glitchy animation used.
I was going to say this, this came out years and years ago.
Yeah.
But the end scene when they're in source code with the big virus head and everything's kind of going crazy, I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels very layered, like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, like the first animated Spider-Man, that final scene where they're like doing the final fight where the reactor is about to explode, and all the colors and stuff are like tripping you out. And I was like, actually, that is a very similarly animated scene.
Yeah, I've got some good. I mean, through this art style, through him coming in, he wrote and directed this episode. There's like only 2 people credited at the beginning of this episode. It's him and one other person. And I mean, I'm very impressed with his ability to come in and keep these characters feeling like these characters for the most part, other than some moments with Princess Bubblegum, which we'll get into in a little bit. I think the plot of this episode is super convincing. I really enjoy like this idea that he brought into it, especially because it reminds me of, the viral worm that's affecting the world for whatever reason. Took me back to the very first Digimon the movie, which I think came out in 2000, where there is a virus that is corrupting computers in the real world, and then also, I mean, Digimon, digital monsters corrupting.
I think I weirdly saw that one. Yeah, it's good. Like now you're scratching an itch in my memory of like, oh, I've never seen the Digimon movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, and because they're like, all of our Digimon have turned like evil, and they like look eviler or something like that.
I want to say, and this is a little bit of a tangent, and we don't often do this on this podcast, but the Digimon movie is 3 or 4 things in Japan, like 3 different animated like miniseries in Japan, and then for whatever reason they cut it up and they put it into one movie in America. And so the plot kind of hops from this to this to this to this. It doesn't really make sense, but it kind of makes sense. All I remember, and that's just a vague memory of me watching videos on this in the past, but all I remember about the movie is that I owned it and I really enjoyed it. Digimon was not as much of a favorite as Pokemon, but I definitely enjoyed it. But anyways, so the art style, it's interesting. It's not really my thing, but I think he plays into the art style well, and it plays for the plot really well. Like I think what he's trying to do and how he does it works. I just don't know if it's my favorite animation. And so, especially when you're considering, as you're talking about, like the end of Enter the Spider-Verse or either of the Spider-Verse movies, like that panicky kind of anxiety, urgency thing that's happening. Is
like, well, the color, really, the quick color shifts, like
it's really
same
facilitated
characters, but color
by
shifts.
This. I think this animation style really facilitates that feeling within you. Like it really heightens it in some ways. And so I felt that, and I hated seeing this girl eating hair. And I loved the way that as soon as Jake or Finn was like, oh my gosh, I have an idea, their brain kind of exploded into the idea, which was the girl eating the hair. And then they go, all right, well, let's do it, So there are things about it that I really enjoy. And I keep talking about why I don't like it. I think I don't like just the 3D blocky styles of animation in general. I mean, modern Disney is good with me. I think it can be very beautiful, but it can be done in ways such as like the CGI tanks and CGI like mobile vehicles and Avatar: The Last Airbender in the last season that really don't work for me. And certain shows like there's a Jurassic Park Camp Cretaceous, I think is the name of it. I think it's on Netflix. And it just is all in this 3D art style. And it just feels so blocky and so awkward. And sometimes it feels like we're getting so close to this, like trying to make animation feel real that it's really uncomfortable. And there's a term for that, but it's
the Uncanny Valley real.
Uncanny Valley. Yeah, there's an element of Uncanny Valley to 3D animation at times. And this episode specifically doesn't play into that, but there's just something I have against
it plays on it. It's not even like I would call an Uncanny Valley, because that's when something they're trying to make it look real and it's just
too close to real.
Enough. There is something a little bit about this one where the animation style itself, I think, is meant to be unsettling to a degree. Like, again, kind of like Finn when Jake falls asleep and has his dream thoughts or whatever, and Finn's like spinning and like biting his arm. I'm like, that just kind of like gives me like a weird, I don't know, like some sort of like weird vibe-ish. And so I think that part of it is, it opens up with the weird girl eating her hair that looks like the girl from The Ring, and it looks like one of the like Momo challenges online. And I'm like, that's kind of not only is that just unsettling in general, but that's like kind of creepy for a kid's show. Like that would kind of stick with me as if I watched this as an 8-year-old,
Yeah, what a wild way to like open this episode up with too. I from the get-go was like, what is going on? Obviously the animation's different. I'm going to accept this and we're going to go into it. But something about us starting on that note kind of set the tone for the rest of this episode for me. And as I watched it more, I did enjoy the episode a little bit more because I knew what to expect. And I wasn't like, we're just coming off of such a high. I think that's the other issue too. We just watched Simon and Marcy.
Coming off of Simon and Marcy right into this episode. And it's probably like maybe a good spot for it because we have seen that with Adventure Time. You get too much 3 canon back-to-back intense build character lore, then it really sets up the one for after that to be not good, So you can't do them all. Everything can't be canon. And it's specifically, I mean, Penn Ward has said this is not canon to the show. So like what happened? And then I noticed that just in general, that this wasn't canon, specifically in the fact that when they are in the source code and Jake rips off Finn's hat and he's got super long hair, have we not been super consistent about Finn's hair length in this season specifically? Right, and so that leads me to, okay, well, Penn Ward can just be like, yeah, cool, not canon, just a fun episode. But after we are coming off of Fiona and Cake, and after we've talked about so much about the multiverse stuff, I have to create a little bit of house canon around this episode.
Okay, do
just
it,
a little bit. Just
convince me on it, Ned.
Yes, and I've got multi options for us to pick from. To this whole thing. Yes, this whole thing
is a choose your own adventure headcanon.
Yeah, a little bit. It's choose your own house canon. Nothing would necessarily change anything here. Okay. I have one of these will be your favorite. So I'm going to start with the simple one here. The simple one is that this is just a different universe off of our core finite curve. That this is the animations, the way everything looks and feels is different. We haven't had the purple episode yet either, because it has bad jubies. Where Finn and Jake actually, the episode starts off normal animation and they jump into a pool and all the animation changes and they're like, everything feels weird. So it is canon that different animation styles can be like different universes pretty much.
Okay. And we had a 3D animation, right? When we were talking about the, what is when they get sucked in the BMO and they're, whatever the sun. I can't remember what that episode's called. So
yeah,
we've seen 3D animation in this world before anyways.
Well, and that kind of leads me to my second theory, because that's the simple one. And this is just a different universe.
Yeah.
That's fine. We can do other Adventure Time universe. And that's what even Fiona and Cake taught us, is that those universes don't have to have all have a conclusion to them. They don't have to continue on. Now, the second one here I think is even better, is that this universe specifically, quote unquote universe, is inside of BMO. It's like BMO's perception of characters, BMO's perception of Finn, BMO's perception of Jake, BMO's perception of, because Ice King's a little off in this episode. Princess Bubblegum's a little off in this episode. Finn, the way that Finn's kind of moving about is a little off in this episode. And the episode opens up with Finn and Jake playing on like a Macintosh style computer, doing like a drawing of Ice King and animating. Now, in any other universe, they would have probably been doing this on BMO, right? They would have probably been doing some sort of game animation on BMO. And specifically, BMO walks across the background when they're playing. So like, again, BMO's present, but not the one that's being played upon. I think that's leads to the fact that this is BMO, and that the problem that's going on, the virus that's eating up their universe, may be happening in the real world, where BMO got an email from Ice King, and the email came into the universe a brick through a floppy disk, even though that would be like just a normal email.
Put it into BMO or something.
Yeah, like put it into BMO, and that's the way it like infiltrated BMO. And that's why there is a source code that makes up everything in the universe. It's BMO's entire brain, and this virus is eating away at BMO's brain. But then fake,
I gotta
Finn
hand it to you, not
Jake,
bad.
Yeah, fake Finn and fake Jake of BMO's memories are powerful enough to actually save BMO in BMO's own mind. I think that's a pretty cool canon.
I think that is a pretty cool canon. How do you explain, though, the fourth wall break at the beginning of the episode when Finn is like, man, how does anyone have patience for animation? Whoever does this must have no life whatsoever. And then he punches himself.
I think in this canon, I thought about that too. You can explain that fourth wall break because potentially speaking, what if Finn and Jake do animations and drawings of themselves on BMO? And so in BMO's mind, if there was anything that Finn said, like, your animation is stupid, and then Finn could make himself punch himself and be like, don't say that, bro. Like, I don't know. That would be my nerdy way of saying the animator in that sense was Finn or Jake on the outside world or something.
Okay. I like it, Ned. I think that's a pretty good theory. It doesn't quite convince me on this episode.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be convinced. It's just, I liked looking at it from that angle. Just now that we know that we have the open world, Fiona and Cake opened the world of like universes that are not attached 100%. To the finite curve, whatever, you know.
Which are unnatural, right? Which we saw. So they would have to try and get rid of them. This would be something that is natural. But just because it's natural doesn't mean like you can't have characters missing or you can't have characters be wildly different. I mean, Farm World and the regular world is a great example of that.
I would say this would be not a universe per se. Like, because again, like not a universe that you could jump into through the Enchiridion portal or whatever. Like,
it's just really hard to explain the universal source code with that headcanon in my mind, right? Because the universal source code is like kind of the I'm drawing a blank on his frick Prismo of this world, right? So I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean the universal source code punches some holes to a degree. Do you have another headcanon? Did you say you have a third one though?
No. That's really the two, and then I think you could probably dissect the BMO theory into probably 2 or 3 different ones on, like, yes, BMO's actually housing a universe in BMO's head, just like Simon was with Prismo's universe. Is this a separate universe living on outside of the connected universes, or is this just kind of like a BMO program per se, like a video game program? It doesn't have to be a universe, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the plot a little bit, because I do enjoy the plot of this episode. As I mentioned, it reminds me of the Digimon movie a little bit. I kind of loved when they went into the universal source code and they started seeing this. They had this huge hexagonal matrix of chips, and each chip represented something from, I think, Finn. For whatever reason, his lack of description is funny to me. He just says, "Oh, those things represent things in our thing." He just has just a really undescriptive way of explaining what's going on. But they're like the snake and the spider is the example we see, or the one that I pulled.
Of when you can like blend things together.
You put them next to each other, they mutate in the real world. So as the virus is going through and eating all of these chips, they're disappearing. They're getting deleted from the real world. I thought that was a really fascinating building blocks for a cool universe. Is having, I mean, it does feel very, I don't know, and Matrix, I don't remember
the Matrix.
Yeah, Matrixy. Yeah, I was going to say Code Lyoko because the animation reminds me of Code Lyoko, the 3D style. But again, I couldn't tell you what the hell the plot is or the premises of Code Lyoko. It's been years, so I don't know if this episode actually is anything like that at all. You're Googling what's going on.
I'm trying to remember just like the animation of all of behind Code Lyoko. Oh yeah, that weird 3D. I didn't watch that show at all.
That's the thing. Like there's certain 3D styles that just really rub me the wrong way. And I do think a big part of my distaste for this episode was totally because of where we've been, what we've been talking about. Simon Marcy, awesome episode, beautiful in a lot of ways. I have grown attached to the animation style that is Adventure Time. Then all of a sudden we go off and we do this weird 3D thing that I just wasn't ready for. I had no idea that we're going to do an episode that was going to like be more an artistic feature or artistic feat than anything. But I don't know. Maybe it'll grow on me. Maybe.
No, honestly, I mean, I could tell you, I've seen this episode a ton of times now, and I'll pick up like I said last week too. I'll pick up on some new things. I'll sit and marinate with it a little bit more, which is kind of how I got to this like BMO theory. In this one though, I don't think. I mean, even after watching it twice today, like nothing would break it down and be like, oh yeah, I just like now I think this is a great episode now. I think it's very skippable. I think there's aspects of it, where if I'm in a mood to have that feel good canon Adventure Time fun stuff, I don't want to be like, it's like watching a different show with the same characters in it a little bit. So kind of like watching the Jimmy Neutron, Timmy Turner crossover. Like, I want to watch Fairly Odd Parents, but I don't want to watch it in Jimmy Neutron animation, And
again, a great example of like when 3D animation goes wrong, like that crossover feels so gross.
I love Jimmy Neutron and I love Fairly Odd Parents, but the crossover was just something about animated Timmy Turner threw me off. And I was like, and he's not supposed to look that way. Yeah. Like
I totally agree. I don't know, man. I'm gonna try my best to stop talking about that. The characters too, right? Princess Bubblegum is sorry. What were you gonna say?
You got it. You keep going.
Okay. So sorry. Y'all know we're doing this online, so sometimes it's a little laggy and we start talking over each other. We apologize, but I was just gonna talk about something that did bother me, not just animation. If we're talking about like the character personalities, most of them felt like the characters, but it did rub me the wrong way. And just Princess Bubblegum threatening Ice King with a gun, like having, and it is a candy taser gun. I think she meant, or candy horse taser gun,
horse tranquilizer,
tranquilizer gun. But there's just something really weird about that. That doesn't feel natural for Princess Bubblegum. I love when she's poking him with a stick, right, and makes Ice King float away or fly away, leave. But then she takes out a gun. She goes, "Oh, I'm going to take care of this," and then just slowly walks off the screen. And I'm like, that just doesn't feel in her nature to me whatsoever. Like, would she not try to go find a scientific way to solve the issue? I was going to
say the exact same thing. Is even when she sits there and it's all the universe is all but gone except for Ice King. She's not finding a solution. She's just going to sit there and make out with her hand to prove the Ice King wrong and to make him reverse it. Now, normal PB you think would have like been sitting there scientifically analyzing something by doing research, by let's crunch some math and numbers and figure out how to reverse the source code deletion, whatever. So very odd. And then I'm with you. I don't like that weird sexual tension moment between her and Jake's elbow or Righty.
At the end, I know.
Righty,
dude.
even though Righty gets my lovely of the episode, I love the I loved the framed montage with Jake's right hand, and he's flying a kite, and he's like holding up a picture of his right hand, and I was like, that feels like an Adventure Time moment of this episode, of like Jake's montage of I just love my right hand. But then I didn't like the Princess Bubblegum aspect. I was like, that it seems like somebody wrote that in without being like, Jake is a father. Like, don't do that. Like,
well, it's also a huge setback this entire episode if this is in the timeline where it's placed, even if it's not canon, right? Let's just assume it's happening in this timeline. This is a massive step back for Ice King. Like, he's come so far. We talked about the found family. He's a part of this unit now, or it feels like he's a part of this unit. Him and Marceline have like reconnected. And then all of a sudden he's going back to just being like this jerkwad, like trying to be a antagonist villain guy who's going to do whatever he can to like hook up with a princess or, marry a princess. And it's just way like season 1, 2, 3 in my mind. We're way past that.
Yeah. I think that's especially coming off Simon. I didn't even think about that coming off Simon and Marcy, but yeah, it's not Simon. He's weird and creepy and kidnappy like all over again, and he'll still do some of that, but at least with the normal canon of the show, he'll be kidnappy. But it's kind of like one of the episodes I just watched where he like kidnaps all the princesses, and he's like, I think it's an elemental, I guess. Yeah, sorry. Never mind. I'm not going to spoil something for you, so I'm not going to talk about that. I was like going down a rabbit hole, and I was like, "Oh, you've watched that episode? Yeah. No, you haven't." So I won't spoil that one.
Well, and there's a few gags that don't really work for me too. The 1 second later gag was totally just out of left field.
It feels very Family Guy, Conway Twitty moment, like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Trying to do a SpongeBob thing too, right? SpongeBob has those where it's like 1 minute later.
2 hours later.
Yeah. So much later that we had to get a new narrator or whatever.
Hey, I like that one. I
like when SpongeBob does it. I just don't think the 1 second later gag worked for me. I actually liked the like 56 seconds later moment or 56 minutes later, whatever, where it was just like really
it was
twitchy.
Like 52 seconds.
That felt
later.
like it belonged within the episode itself, whereas the 1 second later gag kind of just took me out of where we were, like what we were doing.
Think about this. If you were storyboarding, writing, directing, and animating the whole episode by yourself, and you nailed it down, and they were like, hey, actually, our episodes have to be exactly 11 minutes and 30 seconds. And he's like, shoot, I got it down to like 11 minutes and 12 seconds, where that 1 second later helped him fill the gap of just that like little bit of thing to just be like, cool, that's my like baby filler of this episode. That's what I would presume.
Well, I saw another factoid, which I thought was really fascinating, and I didn't bring it up for the last episode, but I'll bring it up for this episode. Apparently, according to the wiki, and we talked about how, one of the songs from, oh gosh, what episode was that? I want to say it was Remember You, but it might have been a different episode where it was like, oh, this is the last episode that Rebecca Sugar is writing the lyrics for and doing the song. Yeah. The last episode, Simon and Marcy, apparently it was the last episode production-wise that Rebecca Sugar was a part of. And it kind of led me into what my lesson would be for this episode, which is simply like, Rebecca Sugar's out. I mean, if this is where Adventure Time is going,
no,
I'm out as well.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. This is one of 4 one-off episodes like this. One of them is better. I think the Bad Jubies one is better than this. The animation's a little more chaotic, but not 3D. It's kind of like chaotic crayon animation. One is like crude 2D cutout animation. It's the water park one, and then the food chain is like a little bit more like, gosh, I don't even know how to say it. Like 2D, but. Yeah, we'll get to that one. But I'd say this is of these 4, this is the second best one.
Well, this is an incredibly difficult task to come into a show that's pretty like solidified in its art style and also its fandom, and then take over write the entire thing, as you said, direct everything. Like that's not easy for someone to do, and all things
to get approved, and for Penn Lord to sign off on it himself and be like, "We're going to release this." Like,
I mean, all things considered, I think it's good. Like it's more artistic than it is than I wanted it to be, and I think art is totally subjective in that, like, you know, we all have our preferences, and this just doesn't hit for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, we're in a season where there's like 50 something odd episodes. Like all these are not going to land perfectly. And I think
you did mention this is a long season for us. Like this is forever, and there are several episodes where you feel kind of like I would skip over.
Yeah, no, and
like
I think
20 of those.
I wish we could be doing this somewhat in the time, and maybe if we got a way more in-depth timeline of Adventure Time, I'd assume that season 5 has to be where it's being picked up by a way wider network, that they're seeing or season 4, they saw the numbers shoot up super high, and that they were like, okay, season 5, like we shut down so many ideas on storyboards and stuff that season 5, like we can just double down. We can accept way more absurdity. We can accept way more side plot stuff. We can accept way more non-canon stuff that they're like, yeah, of course, like we've got a plan that we can do up to 50 something episodes. Of course, let's like, this guy's been writing my desk about this animated Adventure Time project he's been working on for 2 years. Yeah, let's just pull that into season. Like this could have been done years before season 5, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think it would have made way more sense with Ice King and several other elements.
Yeah, this could have been done after season 1, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, man, what other thoughts do you have on this one? I'm kind of at a loss simply because I didn't go too deep with it. I don't have any theoretically speaking stuff.
Yeah, my only thing I had just in terms of deep thoughts was the extra multiverse aspect of it as well. The Finn's long hair. I will say just a couple of notes from the episode that I had itself, that spider snakes are absolutely terrifying, and I don't want that in any part of the real world at all. Yeah, that the Jake and Peebee's hands kissing and making out, that was like a little weird as well. The eating hair aspect was like a little weird as well. Unsettling and everything like that. But like you said, overall, not a bad episode, but I guess that means my lesson is like, don't animate while taking like Molly, or don't do drugs and animate. Like, I don't know.
You think you got to be on drugs to enjoy this episode? No, that's not true.
I don't think.
It's not that bad. It's really not that bad.
If you were smoking too much weed and watched this episode, you'd be freaking out a little bit, I think.
Might be
a little bit too much colors to process all at once.
Well, y'all, I don't know. We'll keep going. We got Traveler's Log to talk about. I think if you want to go back and rewatch this, do it, you know? But
I mean, I would say we still are at 32 minutes on an episode we didn't have a lot of notes on. Episode,
Minimal
2, 3, 4 of this
on.
entire podcast, we were like struggling to get to 30 minutes in terms of conversation topics. So we're doing fine.
All right, y'all. Well, let's talk about Traveler's Log. We've got a new one. This is talking about our, I guess this is, he says, number 131. Ned, which one is 131? That is
I can pull
Mystery
up
Dungeon. It's season 5, episode 8. Okay, so I actually think this might be about a tangent from that episode, so I'm not too worried about y'all having the background about what we were talking about. But so this is, hey guys, DJ Dr. Oz here. Some elemental things, and I all I read was that initially, and I was like, oh my gosh, please, this is going to be a running bit. People are going to be bringing up like Ned's elemental issue.
Oh gosh, guys, I made a mistake. Jesus Christ.
I love it, but that's not what this is about necessarily. I just thought it was funny. It was more a thought about the elementals than anything. So some elemental things I thought of. You said that the Flame King cannot be the fire elemental because Flame Princess exists, and I completely agree. So there you go, on your side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is why I think the previous Flame Elemental was the Flame King's brother that he assassinated.
Yeah, that's true.
Flame Princess wasn't born yet since he was king and when she was a baby, but it probably... Does that make sense? Let's see. Let me reread that. Flame Princess wasn't born yet, since he was king when she was a baby. Okay, yeah, but it probably would have been around the right time. He kills his brother, becomes king, and then has a child to serve as his heir in case someone kills him too. That's all. Haha.
Well,
that's
and
Austin DJ Dr. Oz. So
I like that.
I like that theory.
I like that theory too, because we don't know in overall how fire people are born. I would assume it's not like anything else, honestly.
Yeah.
And that, yes, the Flame King did kill his brother to take the role of the throne. That somehow, if the old Flame King was the true fire elemental, that something about his death could have brought on the next coming of the true flame elemental. Whether it's, all I know is that we have goblin birthing pits, so there it may be like flame people lava pits. I don't know that, or something specifically with royalty.
Is what you're asking.
What?
How are babies made in this universe?
Where do babies come from?
Where do babies come from? It is
I like that theory that piggybacks off of mine as well.
And how difficult is it to kill an elemental? That's another thing I'm curious about. I mean, Flame Princess doesn't seem like she's indestructible. Princess Bubblegum's not indestructible.
Well, none of them. I think Flame Princess specifically is really the only one that's tapped into her true power that we've seen.
Oh,
we'll see Patience St. Pym too as well come up. So there's different potentials of power to where now they could obviously be defeated. The elements could still exist, but if the
reincarnation
old Flame King,
occur.
if the old Flame King was the elemental before, it just somehow reincarnates in a different entity.
Yeah, we got an Avatar situation here. Well, that's interesting. Thank you, DJ. What was it? I said DJ Dr. Oz. Appreciate you writing in. And I like that because that was our theory, Well, anyways, I'm not gonna make that joke. I read it as anus initially, and I was like, that's 100% not what DJ Dr. Oz is.
Not what he said.
No, but anyways, y'all. I think we could probably wrap up. I think it'd be cool to have a shorter episode this week. If you're all right with that, Ned.
There's good fun episodes here and there. We can get some deep thoughts, some theoretically speakings, but trust me, I think we normalized hour-long episodes all through Fiona and Cake, and they all don't have to be like that either.
I'm just gonna go start crafting my apology to David O'Reilly. Hey, man, I got nothing against you.
Nothing against you. Just it's really they did him dirty by slotting him right after Simon.
I totally agree with that. I think
if they slotted him
early in the show, it would have been so much better.
Yeah, or slotted it right after Great Birdman. We're already in like trippy Zergiak birds and that weird ass Zergiak song. Going right into this episode would have been not the worst transition,
Yeah.
What's your recommendation this week?
Dude, I got no rec. I kind of blew it on Naruto from last week. I gotta admit, I'm kind of I'm pretty deep into physical fitness right now. So how about that? I'll rec getting outside. Ned, you know what? We freaking do have something that we should do right now. Actually, y'all, we recently on the Patreon. So plug for the Patreon. We asked our Patreon members. We did a poll. I know. Weeks ago, we talked about the year themes. We talked about what was going to be the year theme for 2024. I think this plays into my rec of getting out. So the winning year theme, and I'll read through them real fast. 2024, knock at the door. 2024, get out, explore. 2024, strengthen your core. 2024, doing less is more. 20, Vinci poor. Always ask for more. 20, plenty poor. Time to save some money. 20 to the shore. Find your Kokomo. 2024, rest and restore. 2024, I don't know what day it is anymore. The winning year theme, so the year theme for this podcast for 2024 is, drumroll please, there's no drums. Okay, thank you. 2024, get out, explore. So that could be my recommendation. It is the year theme. It is how we all will live our lives. You have no choice if you listen to this podcast. That is your year theme. It was voted on, it's a democracy to a degree. Democracy for those who
change your life because of a democracy of a bunch of other strangers.
Yeah, strangers that support our podcast on Patreon. And thank you so much for all the lovelies and sexies that do. Man, I'm actually really excited about the year theme. I did the same thing with my office, and the same year theme won. So, but they actually don't have a choice. At the office, I have them vote on everything, and then at the end, I just decide what the year theme is. And
nice.
It matters not what they voted for. And they all know that, and they've all accepted that over the years. So, but anyways, thank you so much, everybody. Check us out on Instagram at Never Ending Adventure Podcast, Twitter at NEA_podcast, TikTok at Never Ending Adventure Cast. Email us your thoughts, your opinions. Get on the Traveler's Log at NEA.travelerslog@gmail.com. You know, you can always write into the Traveler's Log and be like, hey, I did this review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Spotify, you can only rate, but that's fine. Let us know you did it. And we'll send you a sticker eventually one day. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a good week, and looking forward to getting back to your regular scheduled program.
Yes, I like scheduled programming.
Yes. Party forever.
Let's go.